Hi, everyone. It's Ecology Presents. I am so thrilled to be here with you. Everyone who's joining us on this live stream was jamming in the backstage area. So that tells you it's going to be a pretty good event. So I'm not going to waste any more time with me chatting. So I'm going to bring in all of our three exciting panel members, ecology members, friends, good people in the industry. Hello, Alyssa, Edward, Gary, welcome. Everyone earlier said they were doing fantastic. So I'm just going to take that as the way that things are going today. So thumbs up from everyone all around. For everyone who's joining us on the live stream, I would love to know where you're joining from, because that's a very exciting thing. We're actually all four of us are sort of, if you divided America into quadrants, we're all in sort of the same area ish. I know it's Canadian. I do want to know where everyone's joining us from. I want to know if anyone has a Halloween costume planned. So that's my first chat question. So use the chat. Let us know where you're joining from, what your Halloween costume is, if it's work appropriate or not. I want to hear it all. I want to hear all of it. I want to hear all of the Halloween gems. So I'm Kristen Hancock. Obviously, I'm with Ecology. My pronouns are she and her. I am thrilled to be here. We are in our October session of Ecology Presents, and I'm joined by three amazing internal communicators who are also Ecology members, Alyssa and Edward and Gary. So we're going to do little intros here for everyone. I would love to know. Here's what I want to know. I want to know where you're from, obviously, where you're working right now. And I want to know what your favorite class was in school. And if what you wanted to be when you grew up when you were a kid is similar at all to what you're doing now. Alyssa, do you want to go first?
Sure, I would be happy to. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning. I am currently located in Baltimore, Maryland, in lovely Locust Point. I am based outside of Philadelphia, so just visiting family for the week. So my favorite, let's see, my favorite subject in school was always, English, always reading, always writing. And when I was like 9 years old, I started my first novel because I was absolutely convinced that I would be a writer. So as a kid, the only thing I was exposed to was books. So I thought I would be an author. And then as soon as I got to the real world, I realized there are lots and lots and lots of ways that you can write and get paid to do it, which is insane to me. But I would say that it's as closely aligned as I can hope for. So
That's
I
pretty
get to,
impressive. No, that's
yeah,
good because you
yeah.
are a writer now. So that's cool. Okay, good.
Among many other hats I wear,
Well,
writing is one of
yes.
them.
Yes, exactly. Awesome. Edward, you're up next.
All right. Hello, everyone. Edward Ford here. I currently work at Metadata, which is a company that makes clinical trial software. And let's see, my favorite class, I realized this probably in college. I went to Boston College, and I realized that history classes were my favorite classes. So I wasn't planning on it, but I majored in it because I said, well, if I'm interested in these classes, they'll help my GPA. It's a numbers game. So that was a good thing. And then when I was a little boy, if I rewind, I definitely thought I was going to be a football player when I grew up. I played up through high school. So I am not a football player today. Surprise, surprise. However, I will say that being in the team environment, a team sport, and being able to understand and trust your teammates and working together collaboratively to achieve a broader goal is definitely something that I draw upon every day in the workplace.
Love it. I think there are a lot of children who anticipated being professional athletes. And many of us did not achieve that, but that's okay. It's a very small market for those kinds of goals. I grew up with a lot of people who anticipated being the next Wayne Gretzky. So I understand. Yeah, I understand where that comes from. Gary.
Hey everyone, Gary Ross. I am based in the Chicago area, originally from the New York City area, and I am a internal communications trainer, coach, and consultant. Inside Comms is the name of the company. And growing up early on and probably into high school, I would say my favorite courses were social studies, history, because I like the subject matter, but I also like to volunteer. I was the nerdy kid who volunteered to run the projector whenever we had like a movie or a film strip, if anybody remembers those. And then moving on into college, I majored in journalism, and those were my favorite classes. And I still use everything I learned in journalism today in my internal comms career. So
I think there are a lot of people in internal comms, or maybe comms in general, who have a journalism background, because it's a very I think a strong background for what we're doing. So we've got people. Kristen Cook is in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. She is couple costuming with another friend who is also expecting. Kristen is expecting now. 2 peas in a pod. How cute. I love it, Kristen. That's adorable. Lanice is joining us from Richmond, Virginia. Does not have a costume. Maybe she'll dress up as a well-rested mom. I feel like there are a lot of parents who that would be like the irony of their Halloween costume is dressing as a well-rested mom or dad or parent. Alan is joining us. Alan, I think is in the Vegas area, I'm guessing. Because it's my favorite city, as everyone knows. And here you go. Alyssa, Lanice just relocated from Philadelphia. So there you go. There you go.
Very cool.
Bridget's joining us from Brooklyn. There you go. Excited. No costume yet. Lots of candy. Good. I want to know if people are full candy bar people or small candy people. We are a full size chocolate bar, candy bar house. My partner in life and work, Chuck Gose, is very adamant about that. He does not want to be the house that hands out bad candy. So that's how we're rolling here too. Oh, Ed's here from the Bay Area. That's really cool. I'm always impressed by family costumes. Do any of you, I know Alyssa and Edward, you both have younger children. Is there family costumes happening?
Yeah, I am the last minute mom, so
Yeah.
I highly doubt we will be able to coordinate. But my oldest really is going to be Yoshi for Halloween, and so the baby, I gotta find something. I'll probably put him in a pumpkin, but if I can find a Toad costume, like a Mario Toad
Yeah, yeah.
costume, then I will be. Hopefully, I'll get the 2 kids on the same page. Highly doubt it. If I can, find something last minute, but I have not dressed up for Halloween since my oldest was born. So
there you go. Edward, do you have a family costume plan?
Not this year, but a couple years ago, we did bees, like little bees flying around, bumblebees. They were the bees, and then I was the beekeeper.
I like it.
I had a full beekeeper suit with the gloves.
That's amazing.
That's awesome.
The little smoke thing. I was running around keeping my bees.
That's good. I like that. I like that. Well,
cute.
Ed, all the power to you with your Ghostbusters costume. That sounds like a relatively extensive costume operation. So Godspeed, friend. Godspeed. Katie's also joining us from Sioux Falls. We got there's a Sioux Falls, there's like a South Dakota contingent in ecology, and I'm obsessed with it. Alan says if it was up to his daughter, we'd be unicorns every year. You know what, Alan? Your daughter and I share that. So that's great. I also feel that way. Awesome. Okay. So we've got a phenomenal conversation happening here about education for internal comms. And the reason this came up is because there are often times where we in internal comms I get asked in ecology, what should I be doing to educate myself in the industry of internal comms? What courses should I be taking? Or even earlier on, what courses should I be taking for my undergrad or at a community college or wherever to prepare for a career in internal comms? And the answer is, it varies widely. And often the answer is like, I don't know, is there anything? I know when I went through my communication, my bachelor's degree in comms, internal communications was not a course. It was not on the radar. It existed, but it was not something that was being formally taught in school. So I know all three of you introduce yourselves with your background. I'm going to explain why each of you were asked to be on this podcast. So I was trying to capture a good cross section of different types of education, different backgrounds of education, and different opportunities for people in internal comms. So I recently saw on LinkedIn, Alyssa, you can correct me on the timing of this, that Alyssa just got her master's degree, and I'm always so impressed. And yeah, exactly, Edward, exactly. I'm wowed and impressed by people who have graduate level education. It's something that's always in the back of my mind, and I've never taken the jump for it. So how long ago was that, Alyssa?
I completed my degree in the spring semester of 2022. So I
Right,
began,
you
yes,
finished it during COVID,
I
right?
did.
And also had a baby in that time.
I did.
So yeah, so whatever, it's not a big deal. Alyssa's just going to do everything all at once at the same time. So maybe you should dress up as a superhero for her.
Yeah, maybe.
Awesome. So I saw that and I was like, oh, that's now your master's degree, correct me if I'm wrong, is in communication.
Yes, it's in communications, and there's a specialty in nonprofit/corporate communications. So I attended Johns Hopkins University, and I selected that program because I had been in internal comms for about 10 years. And, my undergrad degree was in English and creative writing. So, what I was really looking for was like a formal education that would kind of like well round me out as a communicator and also kind of expose me to more of like a theory side as well as the practical side. So that's why I selected my program. I felt that my program was like a 50-50 balance of kind of like technical skills, practical classes, where you're actually doing work for clients. And then, the other half of the program was academic. It was theory based. We were doing research and we were learning about communications theories. So I was basically shopping for this program. I was kind of like, undergrad graduated and I was like, oh, I just want to work. I just want to work. Right. And I kind of reached a certain level where I was very, very curious and like ready to kind of like round out my formal education. And I'm very grateful that I did when I did, because, it really did lead to a change in career opportunities. So
That's
that's
awesome. And I
so I
think,
was so I jumped at the opportunity to come
yeah,
and share that experience with everyone on the call.
yeah. And so I think that's an interesting formal education standpoint, right? Oh, Bridget's given you claps. Everyone's got like, congratulations. Everyone's rooting for you in the comment section. I love it.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
There you go. So that was one aspect of education that I wanted to bring to this conversation. Edward, this is so well timed. We did not time it this way, but it's so well timed. Edward we're going to refer, you should have put your name as Professor Ford. We're going to refer to Edward from henceforth as Professor Ford. He teaches a class at City College of New York for graduate level students, and the class is about internal communications. And Chuck and I had the opportunity to be I'm going to call us like guest professors or something. I don't know what we did, but we went and talked to the class about employee engagement and workplace culture and building community at work. So first of all, it was incredible to see Edward in his element and teaching these wildly bright minds that were in this classroom. But I want to hear more, Edward, about your journey to getting to that place of now teaching what you've been doing for work for many years.
Yes, so I mentioned my day job. I moonlight as an adjunct professor at City College of New York, and I teach in their graduate school program, branding and integrated communications. And the course that I teach is called internal corporate branding, which is essentially internal communications. And it was fortuitous, actually, an intern that I had back in the day at a previous job graduated from CCNY. She's very active in the communications community, PRSA, et cetera. Well, she reached out to me, and this is about summer of 2020, so in the throes of quarantine, stay at home, all of that, and said, "Hey, one of my professors is looking for a professor in this for internal communications. You would be awesome." I'm thinking, I'm just trying to figure out how to work. I got these kids, and they got nothing to do all summer. Pandemic, like, can I really add another thing? And long story short, I took the jump, and it's been amazing to be able to bring what I do quote unquote 9 to 5, and then kind of take a step back from that and talk about the theory of it. The other interesting thing about being an adjunct professor is obviously I have a day job. And so being able to bring in kind of up to date real life experiences. I think the thing that I observed in kind of my formal education, as I mentioned, Boston College background, you're learning a lot of theory. And if you're dealing with a full-time professor, they're great, but they're removed from maybe what's happening today. And so one of the focuses for me in the classroom is to make sure that I'm keeping them in touch with what's happening today. So a lot of the examples that we talk about, stealing from a Law and Order, ripped from the headlines. I try to bring in a variety of professionals from all different walks of life, practitioners that are in-house, independent consultants, et cetera, to really expose them to the variety of career paths, but also to understand what's happening in comms today. And I can tell you what I taught in the fall of 2020, this is my third semester, there are things that have evolved and have changed, and I've had to tweak and change some of these lessons to keep up with the pace of change in our industry. So I think that the graduate school opportunity for these students is really great because they will walk away understanding what's happening in comms at a theoretical level, but also in a practical sense today.
My favorite professors and instructors were always the ones who were still somehow involved in the industry because they could bring in real life examples or had recently just left the industry. Like it wasn't like they'd been maybe teaching for 20, 30 years. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it was always interesting to me to have those real life examples in there. The other thing too is if you want to feel like you're not cool and young, you should teach young people because you will instantly feel old. And it was very inspiring to be in a room with these students. And it was funny. Chuck and I were laughing after we left that a couple of times after we were recapping after this class, and Edward was like, yeah, sometimes I think I know what's up and what's hip and what's cool and whatever. And he's like, then I go to this class and I think, oh geez, I don't have a hot clue what's going on. And then Chuck and I were like, man, if Edward doesn't think he's cool, we're done. Like we're not even on the radar if Edward is struggling to be cool and relevant. Like we're way off the charts then.
Nah, you all were great. I mean, I gotta say, Kristen, the lesson that you taught, and it really was really a workshop. I will call you guest lecturers. We're talking about the academy after all, but you guys really just broke down that wall, and they were right here, 100% with you. We could have gone on for another hour or two.
It was cool. They're such a great group. A great group. Okay, now Gary. Now here's the other piece of the tripod here the reason I wanted Gary to be part of this. Gary, you've been in the industry for how many years now?
A lot.
Okay, a lot. So it's been a lot.
30, coming up on 30, yeah.
Love it. Good.
That's great.
And Gary now is offering online courses for people in internal communications. And so, Gary, I'd love to hear about your journey to get to a place where you are teaching in a more I guess I'll say almost like a more adult ed kind of session and online as well.
Yeah. So it's interesting how it all came about. I started as a journalist. I moved into corporate communications and really found myself gravitating toward internal comms, and have been doing that for really the last 15 years or so, focusing on internal comms. And I just felt like at this point in my career, one of the things that I would enjoy doing is taking that experience that I have, both technical on, here's how to do stuff, but also just what it's like to maneuver in an organization and the relationships you need to have in an organization, and present that to folks who are in the internal communications field now, who may not have had the benefit of formal education, but have moved into internal comms kind of like I did, and never really had any formal education on it, and had to learn on the job. And so many of us in internal comms are in that spot right now. So if I can step in and say, okay, here's what worked for me, what I've seen work over the past, and here's how I can help you succeed even faster and become a better communicator, become that trusted advisor without having to learn all of that on the job and all the time that takes. If I can help you do that now, I can help you accelerate your your performance and your career as well. So that's what I felt would be good for, especially for folks in internal comms, where we haven't had a lot of what Edward has offered and what Alyssa has been able to enjoy. So with the pandemic and everything being online, I explored doing that, and that's been helpful. I also do some live things as well. So, and what I found recently too is that it goes beyond. There's a desire for some of this beyond just us communication folks, for quote unquote regular people who are other professionals learning learning the fundamentals of business communication and so forth. So I'm doing a lot more training in that as well.
That's a very interesting point too, that there might be snippets of the broader education that are still applicable to C-suite people, right? People who are trying to be more cross-functional in what they're doing with internal comms, which is such an important part for us in internal comms, because we are now, especially after the last couple of years, being asked to do more than we have in the past. And I think many of us, I would wager to say most of us at this point, landed in internal comms not because we were sitting in high school thinking, oh, you know what I really want to do is be an internal comms manager. That's my dream job. It is the dream job for many of us, but it's not, it wasn't a thing back then, right? It's not something that we were all aspiring to do. Many of us landed in it through journalism, public relations, marketing, HR. There are lots of different backgrounds for that. So I would love to know from people who are joining us what you do currently to stay sharp in your field, to learn, to grow. Is it conferences? Is it webinars? Is it, connecting with people? What are the things that are most beneficial for you from an education standpoint, formal or otherwise? And I would love to pose that question to the three of you as well. Is there like a number one thing that you're like, this is exactly how I want to keep learning? Lanice is telling us she thought she was going to be a lawyer. I love that, because if you're in internal comms, you kind of are at this point. I feel like there's definitely an overlap of like arguing points and seeing all the sides of it and like trying to get people to come together
and winning.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I love that. Edward, is there something that you would say is like, this is how you stay current, or is it teaching?
I mean, teaching is a big part of it now, but I would say like that's just been the past couple of years. I would say for me, I'm a big connector. I'm a big people person. So networking has always been kind of central to how I try to stay current and learn. I'll give you kind of a practical example from early in my career. I became a bit disillusioned with the more traditional internal communications kind of practice as the emergence of social media and video and all these other things were coming up. And this is kind of the late aughts going into the 2010s. And so I shifted my career and was doing online community management internally, so enterprise social networks. And a huge part of my education was connecting with other community managers, because the practice of managing a community inside of an organization in an online setting was pretty new. And so there was not any formal education courses or anything at that time. And so I literally learned. There was a guy, my good buddy, Mike Freda, was across the street, literally from me. I was at McGraw-Hill. He was at News Corp. We would go and get coffee down in the basement of my building at Cafe Metro. And he was like maybe 6 months ahead of me. So we would trade notes. And that's how I figured out how to do a lot of the things that I was able to do. We created a user group that was on the Jive platform, and I met more community managers. Jive World as a conference met more community managers. So the networking piece is an incredible opportunity to get linked up with other professionals that can actually feed your development.
I love that. And I think that that's a piece that's unique in many ways to internal comms, because we are the new kid on the block. Marketing, PR, that's existed way longer than internal comms as a discipline. And so we often are the only people at our organizations, or it's a very small team, and often you don't report to someone who works in internal comms. I've never reported to someone who is my superior, so to speak, who has a background in internal comms. I reported to a CFO at one point. So to have that network of people that you can bounce ideas off of is so important. And we had this is a little ecology plug. We did our camp ecology for the first time. Edward was there in Chicago in September. One of the cool things we did was a field trip to the Art Institute of Chicago. I wrote a LinkedIn post about it. It truly was incredible. So I'm not going to take time here to share a lot about it, but how that came about was because I was connected to the internal comms person at the Art Institute of Chicago on LinkedIn. So I reached out and said, "Hey, can we make this happen?" Fast forward a couple of weeks ago, and she said to me, I really struggle to find other people who work in internal comms at museums. And I was like, you know what? That is a niche market that I am unaware of as well, because I have never worked in a museum in internal comms. Sure enough, going through LinkedIn, what do I see? Oh, I'm actually connected to someone else who works in internal comms at a museum. So asking the question, right, bizarre. Like I was like, look at this. I've made this magic happen. I'm out. Like this is the peak of my connection to people. But that's, to Edward's point, the importance of seeking out connections in the industry with people maybe who are in similar industries is so, so important. Crystal is joining us. She said that she started learning and development. That's a great crossover as well. And look at me in the ecology plugs today. I don't usually do this on this platform. One of the programs that we've launched in ecology is called Beyond Internal Comms. And we bring in experts from other fields who are adjacent to ecology or to internal comms. And the first one we did was about learning and development, was this person who is a full-time employee trainer. And that's what she does. So we asked her questions about what are the links between internal comms and education. Alan's got a career shift from graphic design, marketing, computer science to IC and HR. Well, that's a whole other episode of this. I want to understand the link. Improved our IC technology and branding. I bet it has. That's pretty cool. Thank you, Alan. That's really cool. Gary, I'm curious, you've been in this industry for many, many years. What is there something that has been central to your ongoing learning in that length of time, or has it changed over the years?
Well, some things have changed over the years, but I would say the basic current, it's just to kind of build on what Edward was saying about networking and keeping in touch with, not only keeping in touch, but going to things like conferences and as things progressed later on in years and conversations like this to find out what people are doing, because internal comms there's such a range of maturity of the function, not the individuals. Well, maybe you could argue that, but the maturity of the function in different organizations. Some people are way advanced, and some people are really just, even certain large companies are just starting out on their internal comms journeys. And so for me as a consultant to do that, to stay attuned to that, to find out, okay, what's working and how have those people made it work, and then try to bring some of that to organizations where the function maybe isn't as mature or advanced. And that to me has really been interesting to see how the range of maturity of the function still is in our organization. So there's that. But as also as training has started to, especially online training has started to evolve as well, I keep an eye out on what some of those offerings are too, because there's as the function advances, as technology advances, and as the notion of community advances, and Kristen, you know that as well. Those are really important resources to have.
Yeah.
Well, and to Edward's, I'm sorry, I was going to say to Edward's point about, do you see this just left my brain? This thought it's gone. Alyssa, go ahead.
Yeah, no, like a lot of what you just said, Gary, really resonates in terms of the maturation of the industry. Because there are so many examples of organizational culture eating strategy for breakfast. You can have the best laid plans. You can have, the most brilliant people you can pay top dollar to write down a strategy. But culture is how, organizations get work done. Culture is how organizations, realize the plans on the page. So just in terms of, like my career journey, it was really interesting to have started in one organization at the peak of the first Great Recession. Um, when guess how many jobs there were for English majors? Not that many. So, I kind of began my career in an organization that was 100 years old and had a 90-year-old internal communications space. Right, it was a very insular, conservative
Mhm.
organization. And what was really exciting and stimulating for me was to kind of like, I was like, okay, like this is a very baked in kind of process. Like people knew, trusted, understood the channels from which um, executive leadership communicated with employees and employees could communicate with each other. It was baked in. It was part of the atmosphere of the organization. So in looking outside of that experience, I was really looking to start something new. So, and a year ago, I joined a nonprofit as their first director of internal comms, and so they're growing rapidly. They're having like scaling, experiences, and there is just like so much to be learned, like from like a more mature model to a very very brand new, um you know very very new model. So yeah, I just wanted to like reflect that like every organization is approaching it like differently, and kind of having that external um, those relationships that you mentioned, Edward, and like understanding what other people are doing and bringing that into your organization is really key for communicators to basically say like, okay, more than one company has had this problem before. How did they fix it? What's going to work for us?
Alyssa,
Yeah, and
I'm
by that same token, though, there are some folks who, again, are either have found themselves in internal communications from other areas, or have decided to move in, or from other communication areas, but have decided to move in from adjacent fields. Like there's one person who purchased some of my e-learning who is in HR and enjoyed the communication aspects of HR, and said, I want to go into internal communications, and he moved into it, and then but he felt like he needed to get up to speed fast on a lot of this. So there's the maturity of the function, and then there's the folks who are kind of moving into it to expand it and make it even, and build on it. So when it's when the function is a little quote unquote immature, sometimes folks look to networking, look to training to scale up fast.
Katie's saying that her background is marketing. Katie and I have this in common, that my background's not marketing, but that she was always found a way to incorporate writing and that into her job. And that was my last corporate job. I was not in internal comms, but I was constantly doing internal comms. Maybe that's why it was a bad fit. So yes, I think that's I see you, Katie. I understand what you're saying. Alyssa, I'm curious if you, and I would love brutal honesty to this question, to answer this question. We're all in
I'll
the
try.
nest here. Okay. I want to know, because I ask the same question of professional certification, which we're not going to talk about today because that's a whole other topic. But I want to know if your master's degree directly has impacted your career. Was there like direct ROI, I guess is what I'm asking.
That's like a hard, direct question to ask. I think that like, yes, but also it's much more about opportunity meeting preparation, if that makes sense. So I began, I enrolled in my program in 2019. And, I had been in my role at that time for about 2 years, and I was looking to get some formal education to kind of advance, right? Like that's a lot of times, people seek that graduate education to get to the next level. And I was in that boat. I was like, okay, like, I've had 10 years of industry experience. Let me try and get this master's degree and see if I can't advance my career. Um, I believe that my classes and my on-the-job experience have really kind of like opened up ways that I was able to bring in new ideas at work, and also allowed me to make more connections. So one of my classes that I took in grad school was a social media class, and one of the assignments for my social media class was to improve my LinkedIn profile. And so as a result of that assignment from my LinkedIn profile improvement, I caught the algorithm's attention, the almighty algorithm, and I received an invitation to something called Lunch Club, which was a networking kind of online service that really picked up steam in spring of 2020. And because of Lunch Club, I was able to meet other communicators, and I ended up, doing some freelancing. So there was a direct ROI, like in a literal sense of like step A, led to step B, but like kind of in when it came time for me to apply for this job, I would say that the master's degree definitely helped. Many, um, you know, uh, job descriptions are written in such a way that they, include, master's degree preferred. But I was lucky enough to find my position and to be hired into a culture where they're really looking for the whole fit instead of like the piece of paper. So even though I wasn't done the master's degree, I had, kind of my foot in there in the door. And I also benefited from the best job market in my lifetime, right? So kind of
That's
like
fair.
starting and hitting the career market in 2009 what looked really different than looking for a job in 2021 when
Yeah.
the labor force is what it is. So
And to your point, I've got a question for Edward after this, but this is well timed. Also, I don't know what it is with all these amazing people that I'm surrounded with who are having babies at the same time they're getting their master's degrees, but I feel like I must have an awesome circle of professional people because apparently Kristen Cook is also getting her MBA and is expecting. So that's incredible. In any case, oh, I think we lost Alyssa. I'll let her jump back on. She thinks that the fact that she was even getting her graduate degree is why she was considered for her current role. So to Alyssa's point, we lost you there for a second, Alyssa, but you're back. To your point, even being in the program made a difference for her current role. Edward, I am curious if the students that you have in your class, before they took your class, do you think they knew about internal comms, understood what it was? Were any of them like, yeah, that's the route that I want to go? Or is this a whole new world to them?
Most of them were somewhat aware of internal communications as a function, but not to the extent that we cover it in class. So that's actually one of the first things I do in class. I put up a poll and I say, how much do you know about internal comms? And the options range from what is internal comms? I never even knew that was a function. And then on the other end of the spectrum is move over, I could teach this class. And there's usually no one in the move over, I could teach this class category because I would
Do you
probably
have a
get.
plan? Do you have a plan for if
Oh
someone
yeah.
says, oh, okay.
If someone says that, I'm gonna invite them up to the front and give them the floor for like 10 minutes and see what they got, right? So we
Just
haven't
sit
gotten
back.
there yet. We exactly, hey, you got it. Let's see what you got. Put your money where your mouth is. But I think they know because many of them come in with work experience. So in some cases, they've been in organizations and have kind of tangentially seen it. I think the kind of profile of students in the class is much like we've heard here and read in some of these comments, people that kind of gravitated to that. So maybe weren't formally doing that in their jobs, but kind of were that community person or were that person that disseminated information or collected feedback in their roles, got interested in the kind of practice of communications, and that's what led them to pursuing that master's degree. So for me, I look at the class as revelatory for them to let them understand, but in a more structured way. Because the thing I stress really for the first month of class is this is not about starting with tactics. This is not about somebody telling you to send out an email because we got a new lunch menu or a town hall tomorrow. Not that those things are not important. It's really about what is our value as a brand? What do employees need to know, do, feel? Some of the very fundamentals. Do you understand who your audience is and how to reach them effectively? Those kind of building blocks of an effective communication strategy, and being a practitioner that is a strategic counselor and advisor, as opposed to just taking orders from somebody who is thinking about communications as an afterthought.
Lanice is sort of echoing what Lanice also has her am I the only one who doesn't have their master's degree? Is this like a thing? I need to go jump on this master's train. Okay, Gary and I both don't. Okay, great. Nope. Excellent. Amazing. Oh, and Alan is in the chat too, also has. Okay, anyway. So agreed though that it's to Edward's point, the combination of tactical and theoretical. And I think my understanding anyway of that graduate level education is that you are going to get that combination, but you're also thinking at a higher level, if that makes sense. Yeah. I'm curious, and this is a big part, I think, of probably all professional development in all industries, but specific to the internal comms world. Presumably people who are doing any formal education, graduate, master's, whatever, there's a very important choice that gets made to invest in yourself. Even if you're on a full scholarship, the investment into a master's level program or an undergrad program for that matter is huge. There's massive time, resources. It impacts your family life, impacts your work life, impacts everything. So I am curious, from an investment standpoint, I'm curious in the chat for people who are joining us, do you invest in yourself in terms of education, or does your company pay for a lot of PD opportunities, or do you look for free opportunities? Like where is the appetite for, I guess, paying for your own opportunities? And Gary, I'll start with you, but of course for Edward and Alyssa, I would love to jump in. Are you seeing people signing up for courses who are personally investing in themselves, or is it a lot of companies paying for upskilling, for example?
I see a lot of personal investment. So when people sign up for courses, they enter their information and there's their email addresses, and almost all of the email addresses are personal email addresses, Gmail or what have you. And it's been a real interesting learning since I've been doing the online e-learning for a few years now, is people are signing up for using their personal emails. Now, whether they're ultimately expensing it or what have you, I don't know, but and that's also how I look to appeal to folks too, is to say, hey, you're worth it to invest in your professional development. Here's what your organization needs. Here's how you can best improve your career, and really for a minimal amount, you're able to accelerate that relatively quickly. And so that's something I appealed toward as well. I wish, there are some organizations out there that, and if you look at the Fortune Best Companies to Work For, there's a training magazine. We'll talk about the training. I think it's the Training 100. There are some organizations that just really do a fantastic job in developing and investing rather in developing their people. And then there are some who don't necessarily get it. I think that for employees, that's an important thing for them to evaluate as you're looking at potentially joining a company or potentially deciding whether to stay at a company. How do they invest in you as well? Now, ultimately, you're in charge of your own career. And so I think it's worth it to invest in yourself. But for corporations, I think the good ones do invest in their people, and they're going to attract the best employees.
I've asked a lot of people if they own stocks in their own career path. And I think that's a valuable question for people to ask. There is a conversation happening here about everybody else researching master's programs. Bridget, Katie, okay, this is incredible. So that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I also, no, I wanted to kind of like connect the dots between what, Gary, what you said, which I totally agree with, as well as what Alan kind of said in the comments. When it comes to, career growth and career development, I think that like for my path, right, in my role, I sought the formal education when I felt that I hit that kind of plateau professionally in my role. At the end of the day, if you have a management that is supportive, that's going to expose you to other cross training and job sharing experiences, then you're going to grow and kind of like reach that higher level and have those results on your resume. If you have an organization and you're in a role where you're kind of in a routine, you're kind of doing the same thing year over year, the opportunity to learn and to grow is kind of more on you. And that's kind of the relationship that I struck with my role at the time. I was able to do a lot of, projects and prove a lot of value in changing things, but that was all around the margins. At the end of the day, the job was the job, and the job was going to stay the job. So that's kind of where I went, the MBA, the master's degree route. Do I think it was necessary? Um, not everybody, like you said, Kristen, has the resources and the support, right? Not everybody has the support to get their degrees. So, as long as you get the support either from your day job or from your, your surrounding auxiliary capacity, then that's really going to help you with your career growth. But that's just my opinion, kind of incorporating a bunch of different threads here.
No, that's great. Thank you. Edward, I'm curious if you have typically worked for organizations that have provided professional development, if you've had to invest in yourself, if you've gotten more out of one or the other.
It's been both for me. I've been fortunate to work at places that have allowed me to invest in myself through training, through different developmental classes. But it's funny because you asked the question, I'm thinking back, I'm like, there are times when I invested in myself, and I was thinking, and yes, there have been times. Like I remember taking, I hadn't thought about this in a really long time. I took this online class on gamification that was offered through University of Pennsylvania. It was an online course. And I remember taking this, being sitting on this class, like eyes sleepy because it was nighttime and I'm tired. And I feel like I was taking it when my daughters, who are now 10, might have been like a year old or something. So a ton going on at home. I remember going to a community managers unconference that was on a Saturday in the city. And I like took the train in, and like that was an amazing experience. And so for me, my philosophy is this. The quote that came to mind is from the great American poet of the 21st century from Detroit, Michigan, Big Sean. He said, "Everything I do, man, I OD." And that's how I am. Like when I get into something, like I don't want to just be proficient. Like I want to be the best. And so when I have gotten into new roles where I look around and I see, hey, maybe there's some deficiencies or things that I need to add to my repertoire, the educational piece is often kind of where I turn to supplement the day-to-day experiences that I have, whether it is the theoretical or the practical. And so I think it only follows that if you want to be the best professional that you can be, and if you want to get the most fulfillment out of what you spend, man, at least 40 hours a week, if not more, doing, it only follows that you have to invest in yourself. Find these opportunities, go to these conferences, join these communities. I know this woman from Canada was in a job she didn't like, and she used to come to the United States and go to all these conferences and network and meet all these people. Fast forward, man, she's running this whole thing right now. So you've got to invest in yourself because you never know where it's going to take you down the road.
Yeah, and just to link that to all the networking things that we were talking about before, if you start noticing a running theme in the networking that you're doing, the things that people are talking about, things that they're doing, and you think to yourself, man, I got to go to school on this because I want to be doing that. That's a great way to focus on investing in yourself. And investing in yourself, there's a huge range between devoting a year or more into a big advanced degree, but you could spend a couple of days going to a conference. You can do some online e-learning on a particular task or something else, and go to school on something really quick and invest in yourself. And sometimes it can only take a week or two, and you've invested in yourself, and that's great, and you're furthering. So you can take big, huge leaps, but you can take small incremental leaps, and then one day you'll wake up and you'll be a lot closer to what Edward was saying, and being the best that you can be in your field.
I think it's no different than anything else in life. You're going to get out of your career what you put into it. I fully recognize when I talk about, when Edward mentioned me going to these conferences and things in the US, I will fully disclose, because I don't work there anymore. That was every single event that I went to was I had to take vacation time for it. And it was my own money paying for it, because my employer would not give me the time off or pay for education opportunities.
Yikes.
Yeah. So now I will
Terrible.
also acknowledge I was in a position where I could do that. And I recognize that many people are not, right? I was single on my own. I didn't have kids. Like I was able to fly and do those things. I didn't have a spouse at home to coordinate all those, whatever. I was able to do it. I was in a position where I could, which is really cool. And I think but that mindset can be applied, right? So it's not so much, hey, if you can come to conferences and all that, the great exciting things that our industry does, amazing. But there are also lots of opportunities where that growth mindset is applicable. This is the best marketing I could possibly pull on screen for Ecology right now. Kristen Cook, my Ecology membership is out of my pocket. It's the best investment I make every year. Part of the reason, for real, part of the reason that the cost of an Ecology membership is $150 a year or less if you live in Canada or Australia, because I see your exchange rate and I feel that pain. It is because we wanted it to be accessible to everyone, right? We wanted it to be, there has to be a commitment level that you're engaged in the community. We wanted that commitment level through a membership portal, but it's about what you're going to get out of it. And it's about being accessible to everyone in the industry. I've also told a lot of people that if cost is the only reason that you cannot join Ecology, let me know. If that's the only reason. We have members, we do have a different plan for people who have recently lost their jobs. We'll figure it out. We'll figure that out, because when you are looking for a job, when you've lost your job, when you're in a rough place, that's the time when you need the network and the education the most. So we've got you. We've got you figured out for that.
And Kristen, real quick,
yeah.
the dope thing here in 2022, on the precipice of 2023, is that the bar has been lowered. Like, we're talking about 12, 15 years ago. Really, it was expensive conferences that's $2,500, and you got to fly there and 3 days of hotel, or grad school, and that was really it. And now you have networks. You got LinkedIn. Listen, if you don't want to come out of pocket even for to go to these conferences or things, you could just go on LinkedIn and get in these comments of people posting all the time of these influencers, and you can learn a ton. That's free 99. You already got internet. You already got your phone plan. You're good to go. So the cool thing is the bar has been lowered, and this is the good thing about technology, the democratization of knowledge. It's not cloistered in these institutions of higher learning or behind these paywalls that only corporations can afford. Anybody can access them from almost any station in life, and that is the opportunity.
That's an awesome point. The interest groups on LinkedIn, and then also the message boards for IABC and PRSA. There's an employee engagement group. The people are asking questions, and tons of people chime in with answers. It's really great.
Yeah, there are, I don't want to say endless, because that's not accurate, but many, many, many ways, as to Edward's point, that you can be involved here. Now, Lanice is also saying, important point, Gary, sometimes we think of investing in ourselves as a large monetary investment, and that can be the case. That can also not be the case, right? To Edward's point, there are lots of opportunities that don't have a large price tag attached to them, or a huge investment of time or resources, or you can split it up in ways like the online learning pieces, right? Where you can do things a little bit at a time in bite-sized pieces. All these, look at this. This is amazing. All these people. Oh, Chuck loves your democratization of knowledge.
Yeah.
First,
I
you're quoting
also
Big
love it.
Sean. Now we've got our own new phrases. Like,
I'll be
what's next?
quoting Edward Ford from now on.
No,
I
that's
don't know about you
we all
guys,
will.
but like,
Yeah.
no, but like, I also just want to like completely agree with everything that you just said, and also note that you know, people like Kristen kind of, you know, mentioned, this is I kind of did my first conference in 2016. I went to a Reagan conference, and that was the first time I'd ever done any formal education in internal comms. And I met my tribe. I met people for the first time who were, you know, experiencing the same challenges that I was, and who were trying to make change in their organizations, and who were, you know, basically what I found was that community. And, you know, I definitely found people who are willing to advocate for me, who are willing to be a listening board for me. And, you know, that was absolutely critical in kind of like keeping me, you know, inspired, and also, you know, bringing more of myself into my role. So like, you know, everyone in the comments, you know, I'm really, really like privileged, and I feel very, you know, flattered, Kristen, that, you know, you invited me onto this platform with Edward and Gary, you know, because like I'm really excited to be a resource for others now that I kind of like been around the block a little bit. I don't know if I'm, you know, as you know, I'm not a Kristen Hancock, but I am definitely, you know, I'm me. I'm here.
Right.
And I'm definitely, you know, very excited and interested in helping others, and you know, investing in themselves. So one of my more favorite things was when we would have interns in our organizations, because the intern, you know, who's doing an undergrad in human resources management and gets a job, doesn't know what internal comms is. And then she went and she got a master's in internal and communications, because she learned on the job that this is what the role is, and this is how the role helps meet business objectives. So yeah, anyone in the chat, anyone in ecology, you know, I'm really I'm really very, very true, Chuck.
That's why we love having you here, Alyssa.
Yeah, but
And I will
like,
say,
yeah, but I'm
actually,
excited about that.
I promise I'm not paying people to put these comments. I promise I'm not. So Ed also has his own money in ecology, worth every penny. Amazing. So I really am not paying these people. But I will end on this note. We are paying everyone on this call because that's one of our core values in ecology, is we compensate people for their time and expertise. That doesn't mean that people should never do any engagements, speaking engagements, learning, education for free. If it's worth your time and value and you're getting something out of it, that's your choice to make. Our commitment from ecology is that we don't think that should be the expectation in the industry, is that people donate their time and money for companies to profit off of, essentially. So on that note, we could talk about this for another 3 hours. Thank you, all three of you. What an awesome conversation. What awesome backgrounds. I love the wisdom and the knowledge that we've all got here. Kyla is on this. I love Kyla. Heck yes. That's right. We're going to leave on that note. Thank you everyone for being here today. Thank you for all the comments, everything else amazing. If you're interested in ecology, join ecology.com. Enjoy the rest of everyone's week. Have a phenomenal Thursday, and we will see you all again next month for our next Ecology Presents. Bye everyone.
Everybody.
Thanks, everyone.